The US Department of Justice has confirmed it signed off on the raids of former President Donald Trump's home. The FBI has been criticised over the raids, with claims they were politically motivated. The head of the US Justice Department, the Attorney General, says the raids were justified and he authorised the search.
Our ethical obligations prevent me from providing further details as to the basis of the search at this time. There are, however, certain points I want you to know. First, I personally approved the decision to seek a search warrant in this matter.
And as for the question over specifically why the raid took place and what contents were sought, and perhaps even what contents were removed from the compound, well, that may be released in the coming days and weeks, because the Attorney General also made a submission to the courts in Florida to publicise the details of that warrant. And the US Attorney General also defended the actions of FBI officers after reports of death threats against them.
They do so at great personal sacrifice and risk to themselves. I am honored to work alongside them. More information will be made available in the appropriate way and at the appropriate time.
As for Donald Trump, he has released a statement saying, "My attorneys and representatives were cooperating fully and very good relationships had been established. The government could have had whatever they wanted. If we had it, everything was fine, better than that of most previous presidents." And then, out of nowhere and with no warning, Mar-a-Lago was raided at 6:30 in the morning by very large numbers of agents and even safecrackers. They got ahead of themselves crazy. Although Trump did say there he was given no warning, but the Attorney General did say and did specify in that statement earlier today that Trump's lawyer was given advance notice that that raid would be happening. Joining us live now from Washington, D.C. is CNN reporter Stephen Collinson. Stephen, can you take us through what the Attorney General said this morning and what it means?
Yeah, the most interesting development is that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, has asked for the search warrant that was given to the FBI before they showed up at Donald Trump's property to be unsealed. That could also come with a list of the property that was taken away from Trump's resort. What this could tell us is exactly what the FBI officials were looking for when they carried out that search on Monday, and it could give us some indication into what they took away, although obviously this being in the realm of classified information, what exactly they got might be a little bit difficult for us to find out. But what Garland is effectively doing is calling Trump's bluff. The former president now has to decide whether he's going to fight this in court. Search warrants are basically kept sealed to protect the privacy of the person they are targeting in case it turns out that they didn't commit a criminal offense. Now, if Trump argues that this should stay secret, that it shouldn't be unsealed, that goes against the fact that it was he himself that told the American people that this search was carried out. So it's a very interesting political move by Garland, and it follows an absolute tsunami of conspiracy theories and attacks by Republicans on the Justice Department on the basis, basically, that this was a politicized raid and it was more political persecution of the former president.
The first signs have emerged from the US that inflation may have passed its peak. Consumer prices were up 8.5% last month from a year earlier, but that has slowed from the 4-decade high of 9.1% in the previous month in June. Joining us live now from DC is CNN reporter Tom Foreman. Tom, relief is a word that may come to mind here.
It might, but I'm going to pull out my crystal ball here and say, is this real relief? Maybe. That's the thing from economic analysts here. They're saying, look, you cited the numbers there just a minute ago, Pete. That's not a gigantic drop. It's an important drop because they think it may indicate that consumers here are finally up against it and saying we cannot handle all these giant costs anymore, that maybe people are stopping this rush to spend money that they saved up through the pandemic. And if that is true, if it sticks that way, then yeah, the peak may have passed. But look at those numbers. We still have quite a way to go before it becomes something that people are comfortable with. And right now, a lot of it is being fueled by fuel prices being lower. That's what's making some of this difference, Pete.
Our political analyst and professor at Curtin University, Joe Siracusa. Good morning, Joe. So
good morning,
it's
Pete.
Still there. It's still hot in Taiwan since we last spoke. Many people have suggested, though, the attacks or the show of force by China isn't as grand as they might have expected, but it's still quite a message that China is sending. How much do you think is President Xi here playing for a domestic audience?
Well, probably 50 to 60%. But by the same token, the PLA, or the military, are doing exactly what they've been trained to do, is to put as much pressure on Taiwan and Taiwan's neighbors. I mean, that's a demonstration not only for Taiwan, Pete, but for the people, the nations around Taiwan that might like to help them one day. So it's just really telling them to back off. Like us, that's right. As a result of Pelosi's trip, and of course, Pelosi is an endorsement why 82-year-old people have to resit their license. She didn't have a right to go there, like a chicken crossing the road. And the president didn't have the guts to lean on her. He should have, as a matter of fact. But look, every time a nation does something, that's one less thing they can do the next time. So what the Chinese are doing, they're up in the ante. They have a lot of military power in their neck of the woods, and they're not afraid to demonstrate it. And what's interesting is I saw a poll the other day, and 90% of the people in Taiwan want the status quo. They're not in a mood to fight anybody. So here the United States is taking the lead, and Australia right behind the United States, telling the Chinese where to get on and off the bus. And so, and of course, the Chinese now are giving the Americans what I call the Australian treatment. They're not talking to them on a number of issues. And
China's government is announcing its live-fire military exercises in the Taiwan Strait are now over for now. Beijing says the sea and air operations, including sea raid rehearsals and missile landing within dozens of kilometres of the island, were a success. The drills were in response to a visit to Taiwan by the US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. China believes the visit was an attack on its sovereignty, prompting a military response. China's military is promising to keep an eye on the island and regularly carry out military training and combat readiness patrols in the Taiwan Strait.
It has successfully completed various tasks and effectively tested the integrated combat capabilities of the troops. Theatre forces will keep a close eye on the changes of the situation in the Taiwan Strait, continue to carry out training and preparation for combat, organise regular combat readiness patrols in the direction of the Taiwan Strait, and resolutely defend national sovereignty and territorial integrity.
China's Taiwan Affairs Office released a policy document committing to using force against Taiwan if it could not control the island by peaceful means. Let's go to the Shadow Home Affairs Minister Karen Andrews now and return to our top story being China and Taiwan. Karen, good to see you. So you had those warnings from China's ambassador to Australia yesterday. No room for compromise. It will take Taiwan eventually. Its people will be re-educated. It's up to Australia to mend the relationship, not China. Some pretty chilling stuff there.
Absolutely. It was very concerning to listen to the ambassador speak yesterday. I don't think that it will play out well here in Australia. I think that people will be very concerned about what China is doing, even more so than they have been in the past. Now, clearly a diplomatic resolution is the best way forward for us, but Australia needs to maintain its strength, and we won't be bullied by any other nation. So let's be clear about what our position is, but let's be open to the opportunities to work with China to resolve the differences. We do rely very heavily on our trading relationship with China, and whilst it has clearly had some irritants in the past, we will all be better off with a good, strong relationship into the future. But it can't be a one-sided relationship. It can't be China telling Australia what to do, serving up a list of demands and expecting Australia to cave in.
Just bringing to your attention, folks, the very, very sad news that has just come to light in the last 20 minutes or so, that Olivia Newton-John has passed away at the age of 73. Just reading from a post that her husband has made on Facebook, Dame Olivia Newton-John passed away peacefully at her ranch in Southern California this morning, surrounded by family and friends. Olivia has been a symbol of triumphs and hope for over 30 years, sharing her journey with breast cancer. Her healing, inspiration and pioneering experience with plant medicine continues with the Olivia Newton-John Foundation Fund. So that is very sad news, and that's just come into us, just been published on Facebook about 20 minutes or so ago, that Olivia Newton-John, the great Australian singer and actress, has passed away. And joining us is CNN's entertainment reporter, Chloe Melas. Chloe, thanks for your time this morning. As I mentioned, we were talking a little earlier to a gentleman in Los Angeles. It's not just a death that's felt so much here in Australia, but right around the world, including the US and in particular New York City.
That's so sad. Olivia Newton-John was an icon. She broke so many records in the music industry, and she really opened so many doors for women in music. I had the great pleasure of interviewing her in 2017. We spoke about her career, her breast cancer foundation. We talked about how the impact that the movie Grease had on her career. I want to just read you a little bit of what she told me a few years ago. She said, "I don't think anyone could have imagined that a movie like Grease would go on almost 40 years and would still be popular and people would still be talking to me about it." She told me that in her concerts, she would even sing songs from Grease because she knew that that's what people wanted, and she would pepper in other songs like Let's Get Physical and other songs into her repertoire. But she really was such a multi-hyphenate star. She could sing, she could act, she was a triple threat, all in front. You saw this beautiful smile, this happy person bringing joy into everyone's lives, but this backdrop behind her of breast cancer, then spinal cancer for decades. And she spoke to the Today Show last year, and she said, you know, her cancer was back again, and that she had good days, she had bad days, but it was really her husband and her family that were getting her through.
Big sports news overnight. Serena Williams is set to slowly ease into retirement from tennis, declaring her intention to walk away from the sport in an article for Vogue. Plus comments that she made on Instagram about 6 hours ago, so it's fresh. 23-time Grand Slam singles winner is currently playing at the Canadian Open in Toronto, progressing through to the round of 32. But Williams has now reluctantly admitted that she will be moving on from tennis. The 40-year-old stated that she wants to continue building her family away from life as an athlete. It's expected the US Open will be Williams' last tournament, which is where she won the first of all of those Grand Slams.